Afternoon, year 11s. I just thought I'd go through your mock with you on the video format. I've told my class why, but I personally think it makes much more sense because you can return back to it when you do your revisions. It means if you missed a lesson, you will not have missed the feedback, and it just means you can slow me down when I talk too quickly or speed me up if I'm too boring. Okay, but that's the main idea behind the recorded video feedback as opposed to class feedback. Okay, so on the left hand side here, you can see it. I've got my the exam paper you sat. On the right hand side, I've got the mark scheme. I'm going to go through question by question as quick as I can in order to cover 88 marks, which took you an hour and a half to write. Okay, so it might be a long video, but you can, as I say, pause, check specific chapters. I'll divide the video into natural hazards, one chapter, section A, section B, living world, section C, physical landscapes. Okay, not going to dwell on the short questions, but the first one was an oil spill. An oil spill is the only one that isn't a natural hazard because it is usually caused by human error when oil drilling. So that is that answer. Question 1.2, the answer was, you can clearly see, use your compass skills. You've got a scale, you've got a compass over there, but the Hurricane Dorian passed to the east of the USA. Okay. I mean, you can't get that wrong. I don't think anyone did in my class. And the last one is asking you to use your scale. Okay, so in this case, you can clearly see that hurricane force wind is the color red. Okay, so you only measure what's in red. What I do is you can see that when you use a ruler, if you put your ruler from 0 to 500, you can see however many centimeters 500 is. I want to say it's probably 4 in real life, but obviously this is on the screen. Anyway, if you measure this gap, you can then use your ruler to go around the line. Okay, if you use a ruler and every time the line bends, you kind of shuffle your ruler a little bit, you'll be able to measure the length of the hurricane force path. But ultimately, there's a scale. Use a scale. Use your ruler. You can always use a necklace or shoelace, and you put it along the bendy track, and then you pull it and measure it along your ruler. That's another way of measuring a scale when it's not in a straight line. Okay, so the answer there, and I'm not gonna lie, they had a huge bracket of possible answers, but it was somewhere around 2,600 kilometers to 3,200 kilometers. So they're quite generous with the marking. So next one, 2 marks, 2 features of Hurricane Dorian. I personally find they have been too generous with the mark scheme again. For me, a feature is the way it's physically built. So an eye, you can see an eye, you can see an eye wall. It's going it's circular shape, going anti-clockwise. That's 4 different possibilities of what you can write. The exam board was so generous, they'd even allowed you to say locational features. Allows spelling mistake on the exam mark scheme. But anyway, features like north of the Bahamas. It's true, but for me, this is 100% not a feature of a hurricane. So you get away with it this time. I wouldn't bank on that. Try and stick to the physical formation of the storm. Okay. This one there was probably the question I hated the most, because so many people saw the graph and was like, pretty graph, great data, moving on. There was data, you had to complete it. 2018 was blank. Okay, you can see it there. Got the data down there. You just have to draw it. I know we don't color in all the time in geography, but they require your ultimate coloring in skills. Please do it. You lost 2 silly marks in that by missing that question. Question 1.6 then asks you to say what happened to storms in general. And so if you look at 1.6, the answer is what causes storms to increase. You've got a list here on the right-hand side, but rising sea levels, climate change, warmer sea levels, more areas of 27 degrees or more. Okay. One way in which you can reduce a tropical storm is about reducing the impacts, and the 2 marks, one way, and you explain how it helps. So whether that's evacuation routes, means people are not in harm's way, reduce death rate. Whether that's early warning system, means people can prepare. Early disasters, emergency kits, means people have what they need in the event of a storm. Removing trees so that debris doesn't fly into houses. It could be something as what else? Evacuation centers, so people have somewhere to shelter if their house isn't built properly, etc. You name it, just one and an explanation. Question 1.8. After that, you had beautiful little figure. UK weather is becoming more extreme. Do you agree? And in this case, I'd say it says here, command word is do you agree? So the focus of the question is in evaluation, saying yeah, I agree, a little bit, I disagree. So I'd have gone 1-piece paragraph. In that piece paragraph, you say, point 1, the UK's weather is becoming more extreme because it's becoming hotter. Evidence, well, we just had it. In the last 10 years, I think 7 of the last 10 years were the warmest on record. Brilliant. Analysis, you've got data there. It literally says on the figure, high summer temperatures and lower rainfall in some areas have increased the risk of more and flooding. Boom, you can write that down, okay? And then you say, however, well, however, you could argue that there's more fire because there's less. We've got social emergency services are more stretched, so there's maybe less good maintenance of the moorland. You could say there's more houses being hit by flooding because there's more houses built on floodable land, not necessarily because it floods more, because we're putting more houses in harm's way. Okay, something along those lines gets you 6 marks. So, question 1.9. Explain why earthquakes and volcanic eruptions take place on a destructive plate boundary. You get 2 marks for saying what a destructive plate boundary is and how it works. So continental, oceanic subducts or sinks below the continental, and because it's denser. And then you get another mark to explain why they occur. The reason why they occur is because slab pool theory or one theory or convection currents mean that as the plate sinks, it melts inside the mantle. All the carbon that's been locked away at the bottom of the ocean heats up, it gasifies, creates pressure, and then can be released in a volcanic eruption. Or as the plate slips, friction builds up, and then friction is released. Energy is released when the plates slip. Okay, that's how you get your 4 marks. For the 9-mark question and final question for hazards, in this case here it said, to what extent do the effects of tectonic hazards vary between areas of contrasting wealth? The 2 case studies you had were L'Aquila, which is a HIC in Italy, and Nepal or Gorkha in Nepal, which is your LIC. I'd have done 2-piece paragraphs, one saying, yes, low-income countries are more affected. For example, in Nepal, give me some data, explain to me why that data shows Nepal is worse off. But you could hypothetically say infrastructure in Nepal was worse quality, and evidence is 7,000 schools were destroyed. Analysis means that there were more children in vulnerable position who were more likely to die. As a result, 9,000 people died. However, you could say, well, in HICs, it's just as bad. There was university that was destroyed in L'Aquila, and being old-built university is hard, is more expensive to rebuild, etc. Okay, and paragraph number 2, I'd have said something along the lines of less damage in L'Aquila, but all the damage will cost more to rebuild because historical buildings are more expensive to rebuild, and cultural value of these ancient buildings cannot be replaced. It can be physically replaced, but the kind of historical aspect of those is destroyed forever. Okay, so that can't be replaced. And you could say, well, however, in Nepal, they also really struggled because of the landscape makes it hard to go and rescue people, etc. Whereas L'Aquila was in the city. In Nepal, it was spread in the capital city and across the valleys. Okay, anyway, 2-piece paragraphs. So comparing both in each, and you've got your 9